And good afternoon. It is a beautiful Tuesday after a rainy Monday yesterday. And really glad you could join us today. If you were following my Facebook page, you know we're going to do a little crafting, a little painting today. But first, I'd like to introduce our guest. I'd like to say hello to Kimberly Bailey of Invisible
Hello.
Combat.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm so glad to have you here. I've known Kim for a few years. My daughter and Kim went to school together. And now she's a grown woman with a cause behind her,
Yes.
which is really great to talk about.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is make sure I went ahead and cheated a little bit and started the canvases. I had to make Kim.
Yeah, it's my name.
What you're going to do is you're going to take with masking tape or paint tape, you're going to tape an initial or a name on your canvas. And from there, you're going to paint. But first, what I would suggest is, yes, run your finger around the seams. Make sure that you don't have any gaps, because when you do, you get bleeds. Now, what I did is I took a paint pen and outlined to cover up some of the bleeds, and then started playing
Good idea.
with little
Yeah.
curly cues.
I might
and
need
stuff
to do
like
that 'cause that's a good idea.
But it's a fun way to do. And this is something that you can do with your kids. I did it with my granddaughters many years ago for Mother's Day. You have toddlers. If they're really young, consider using the flat canvases over the stretched canvases, because when you've put their name on, you're going to let them finger paint. And little kids don't always understand light pressure, and they could poke through a stretched canvas.
Definitely.
So consider, if you're using a toddler, the flat canvases, and it still works just as well. You're going to maybe with tape do their name, and that's probably the most time-consuming part. Is
Sure it
very
is,
carefully
yes.
making sure their name is written on there in illegible, and then running your fingers along the seam edges to make sure it's there. And then the fun begins. You're going to start squirting a whole bunch of paint and smearing it around. We have things to make it swirly, or you could add little fine lines to it while you're mixing the paint. The idea is to have fun, and there are no rules, which is why when my granddaughters were little, I let them use their little fingers. This is all paint that can easily be washed off with soap and water. You think you're ready, Kim?
Yes, I think I am. I think
Okay, so once you start
the edges
squirting
are
some
down.
paint,
Yeah.
and let's talk about your wonderful program. I already know a little bit about this program.
Is this black?
It should be
It's
on
not.
the
Yes,
sides.
it is. Thank you. Sorry, I knew that.
Is called Invisible Combat, and I'm trying to do my part to support your program.
Yes, thank you so
What
much.
is the basis of Invisible Combat?
Well, yes. So I don't know if any of you have saw me on April, the Central,
Davidson's
yeah,
show?
April Davidson show last week. Was it last week? Invisible Combat. So I'm an Army veteran myself. Hence the camouflage today.
How long did you serve?
I was active duty for 4 years, and then I did a little bit of reserve. So yeah, and that was back in, I got out in 2010, I want to say, and then I did a little bit of reserve until 2013. So it's been a little while since I served, but after I served, I went through a little bit of a downhill space for me when I was transitioning. It was a little bit difficult for me transitioning out of service. And I think, for me, I kind of felt a little bit invisible, just because all the stuff I was going through, no one really knew I was going through those things. A lot of the stuff was stuff that I internalized, because, in the service, so often we tend to, want to be strong, right? We want to be tough, and we're mentally tough. We're mentally prepared.
Isn't that what you're told to be? That you're told,
yeah,
suck it up, let's go, move forward.
Yeah, and so often, for us as service members, I know for me, I can speak on my situation's kind of watery. That I did. I really internalized a lot of that stuff and didn't really talk about it. And so, because of that, I struggled a little bit when I left service. And then after the struggling, I've since got myself back on my feet. I went to school. I got my master's in social work. So that's something that I did after I left service. And so now I just I'm really passionate about mental health. And of course, I'm a social worker. And veteran mental health is just something that I'm really passionate about, because, I personally struggled through that. And I also have seen so many of my battle buddies, my sisters and friends, that have struggled through those invisible wars, after
you
service.
talked about that women veterans, a lot of the programs are tailored towards the men. And then they have unique situations too the women have to go through.
Definitely, yes. So a lot of the programs, especially here locally, we have, don't get me wrong, we have amazing programs and organizations here locally for our veterans. We have the VA, and then we also have a lot of really good organizations like Central Valley Veterans, and
that's a great program.
They do amazing work for our community. But sometimes us female veterans can kind of feel lost in that because there's a lot of focus around males, just because most people assume that it's a male. When you think of veterans, oftentimes people think of male veterans, and so we don't always hear about some of the struggles that our female veterans go through. But we definitely do struggle, just like our male brothers, when it comes to combat-related stress, or when it comes to other things like military sexual trauma. I talk a lot about moral injury. Is something that I'm really big on. I don't know if you're familiar with moral injuries.
And why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, some people aren't actually as familiar with that, because majority of people think about traumatic brain injuries and loss of limb and PTSD is like the predominant injuries that we think of when we think of the war or just service in general. But the less likely talked about is moral injury. So when we think about
give us an example.
Yeah, so when we think about like our moral compasses, or an injury to our spirituality sometimes, or our ethical principles. So oftentimes we see that when we look at combat-related situations where, we have to engage in physical violence, right? So sometimes that can be very injurious to somebody's moral compass, and because sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes it's survival, to do stuff like that. And so sometimes when we leave service, we can have those moral injuries that are really deeply inflicted, and maybe we don't even know that we're experiencing them until years later. When we, because they change, and then our moral compasses change. Our ethics change as we get older, as we get into different spirituality beliefs, or
whatever you change, whatever you're,
we all change,
you transform. We all develop and we evolve.
Exactly.
Time. One thing I did forget to tell you is make sure you cover your work surface.
Yeah, I feel like I got some paint on me. That's
well, I've got some paint. That's what the towel is for. And then I did put down some wax paper, so we do have some protection there. And you're very creative with the little pats.
This isn't my first rodeo. Yeah.
You just got to have a little bit of fun with it. And that's the big thing, is having fun with this. And let your kids, there's no rules. So when your kids are painting over their names or their initials, just let them have fun. Be silly kids. Do it outside, maybe with some newspapers scattered around, and the fact that you have access to the bathtub or the shower shortly thereafter.
Yes.
So it's a good project to do, and you just let it air dry. So it's just a little bit of fun sort of thing.
Yes.
And there are no rules, as I was saying. One of the things that we had talked about is the high suicide rate for women veterans.
Most definitely. When we see things like that, women veterans are 2.5 times more likely than their female civilian counterparts, to complete suicide or to think about suicide. I mean, those are really high numbers, and they're very alarming. And for me, alarming. I have, and me as a female veteran myself, I have been touched by suicide. I've had battle buddies and friends that I've served with along the years that have either thought about it, or I have a few that have completed suicide. And so it is, that's a personal thing for me, and I think a lot of our service members can relate, because they probably have known somebody, right, that has thought of it, or maybe they have thought of it themselves.
Or perhaps you've been in that case.
Yeah.
Now, you have a way for people to reach you? How can they do that?
Yeah, so a lot of the experiences that I've experienced in the service, and also some of the people that I know, that have experienced some of these issues, I blog about this stuff on my Facebook and Instagram. So it's called Invisible Combat on my Facebook and Instagram. And I talk a little bit about my own personal experiences in the service and transitioning out. And then also you can email me, invisiblecombat@gmail.com. And I also run an online support group for female and military service members that are veterans. And so we do little online groups, just ways for us to connect and ways for us to share our stories, because so often we keep them inside and we don't talk about them.
And who else is going to understand better than someone who's been in a similar situation and a similar trauma?
Right, exactly. It's just, yeah, it's mind-blowing to see the numbers, because even when we think about veteran suicide, that's huge. That's really big, especially right now in the media. We talk a lot about it. But some of the things that you don't see, and some of the things that we think of when we think about those internal wars and invisible battles, like when we leave service, sometimes a lot of people use negative coping strategies like alcohol or drugs even. Yeah.
Yes.
Things like that.
Self-medication.
Self-medicating, right? Because they just don't want other people to know that they're suffering or that they have these challenges, because we're told to be so tough that it's really hard to open up and share that with other people. And so then we see the other effects, such as homelessness, such as veteran incarceration. And that also affects our female service members.
And it does. And it does. I've had the opportunity to meet some of the women in your group, and they're amazingly
Yes.
strong women.
I love them.
Really, just, I'm so impressed. What we're going to do is we need to let this dry.
Okay. Is
And
that good?
we're actually, it's great. There's no rules, remember?
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, and I'm going to hit these with a heat gun and try to dry them up enough so that we can peel back and you can get an idea of what it looks like. And I can show you other things that you can do with your canvases
Yes.
and paint. So we're going to take a quick break. Welcome back to With Kaden and with Kim of
Yes.
Invisible Combat. And we've been hearing some great stuff. We're going to go back to crafting in just a second, and we are going to go back to Invisible Combat. I did try to hit these up with the heat gun. I kind of made mine thick so it didn't dry real well, but it's a good lesson to show you why.
That's why I did a little sponge things. Yeah.
And yours is drier. What you're going to do is take some tweezers and start pulling up the tape. Make sure the paint is dry first before you start pulling up the paint tape.
Yes.
It will make it crisper and better than trying to do it with
So I just pick
wet
up a
paint.
corner,
So
or-
just pick up a corner.
It's like
Well,
looking
look
at
where the
paint.
tape is. And then you're just going to kind of reach over there, and I'll show you why.
Oh, I
So
see.
after you get the kids showered, after their painting job, I don't know if you'll be able to start seeing that the paint will definitely start bleeding over.
Yeah, a little bit. I see that's okay though.
It's a little bit, not too bad yet. I haven't got to the real wet spots yet. But, and it's just a little bit of,
Oh, nice. I like the little thing that you did.
yeah, it's just fun. There's no rules. And one of the reasons I did this project is because I know Kim has kids. I'm totally in love with her daughter, and her daughter will hopefully be in another show later because she
Yeah.
has her own little program.
She does, yes.
But now you have a master's in social work,
Yes.
and I know I want you to talk about the fact that you're going after your PhD.
Yeah, it was a recent it was a recent decision. I mean, I just finished my master's not too long ago. But I just, I wanted to continue. So I'm working on but I'm hopefully getting a full ride scholarship. I'm not going to say that I am or not because it hasn't been given to me yet, but I'm in the work.
Application process?
Yeah, I'm in the application process for one. So if I do that, then I will be getting my my PhD in psychology. So that's what I'm
they
hoping
will
to
have
do.
Dr. Kim in the family. If you do have smears and paints, what you can do is do like I did here with a paint pen and re-outline it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
you can
I can do
actually
that.
go back with a fine brush and paint your blank space and then kind of cut in your margin. Again, really making sure your paint tape and your tape to do the name is really tight and rubbed down. And there's other things you can do too. Is why can't you take one of those canvases after you've
That's
smeared it,
nice.
let the kids smear. This is from one of those dollar stores, and it's a coaster or something you put underneath a candle and glue that on, and then you have your wooden letter. My last name is Ferretti, so naturally I have to have an F. But have a little bit of fun with it, and let the kids get creative and fun. I mean, I don't know yet what I'm going to put on this one, but I'm already trying to figure it out and have a little bit of fun. Red's my color, so naturally there's a lot of red in this.
I like the texture in it. Yeah, it looks good.
A little bit of schmurls.
Yeah.
But it's no rules. You're only limited by your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said that you're starting a committee with Invisible Combat as well?
Yeah.
So you're looking for people?
Yes,
to help?
I'm actually working on creating a committee because, like I was saying, in the Central Valley here, we have a lot of great organizations, but I really wanted to focus on the intercollaboration. I'm collaborating with other organizations that, are beneficial to our veterans here. And especially if I want to form, a predominantly female committee so that we can speak on some of the challenges that we experience from a female perspective, because sometimes we do experience a little bit of different challenges sometimes than our male brothers in the service. So some of the things that I wanted to work on are the inter-collaboration, but also just bringing awareness to some of the unique challenges that we have. And, like female veteran suicides and military sexual trauma, and some of those barriers to accessing mental health services for our female veterans.
Right.
Maybe if we feel invisible and we feel like we're not included or part of the team, oftentimes we won't seek out services, right? And we won't seek out those supportive networks that we really need. Yeah, sometimes that can occur as well. And so the more we talk about it, the more awareness we bring to the table, the more we share those stories with others, the more we'll understand, and the more we'll be able to help support our female veterans.
So let's make sure that you do note the ways to contact her. Can you repeat one more time?
Yeah,
how I can contact you.
Yeah, I have my business card. I don't know what's on the screen. Can you see that? So my contact information, that's my phone number. I have the best way to reach me really though is probably through email, invisiblecombat@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you wanted to look at my Facebook and Instagram, I do respond to messages there as well. So you can message
very
me.
Very responsive. She doesn't seem much like me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's anyone that else is passionate about it. I'm passionate about it. I always like to talk about these issues. And, not just talk about them, but also bring relevant changes, right, and transformation. Because the more we know about it, the more we can do about it. And hopefully that's what I wanted to do here in the Valley.
Find some solutions. And get some resolve.
Yeah, definitely. So if anybody wants to be a part of that committee, or just wants to find out more about, hopefully, after things kind of cool down around here, hopefully, once we start,
getting together again.
Yeah, we'll start getting together again and start actually talking about some of the relevant changes that we can make, or maybe, for me personally, being that I'm really passionate about mental health, I really wanted to bring some mental health workshops, maybe some trainings to providers, just different ways to bring that awareness and bring that attention to some of the challenges that we face as female veterans. Yeah.
Well, now you know where to reach her. Please reach out, especially if you're a female veteran, and find out more about this wonderful program and what she's got planned for all of you. We're going to take a break. Oh, yeah, we're going to show off her work.
Yeah, except
There's
that mine kind of, the little lines kind of blend. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, but I kind of like it, though.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Thank you.
It looks like, because the blues.
It kind of blended in. Yeah, it kind of blended in. So this was a mistake, but it actually turned out.
It turned out really great.
I think so, yeah. Thank you very much for this.
Well, thank you for joining me on with Kaden.
Yeah.
And I like to clink.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, I appreciate it.
And we'll see you after this break.
Yes, thank you.